Y&R Spoilers Reveal In. A life full of intrigue and pitfalls in the business world, Newman and Kyle Abbott never stop facing challenges. They used to be work companions and romantic partners, but now their relationship is threatened by a not-so-pleasant character, Audra Charles. Victor Newman's plan is gradually being revealed. At first, Claire and Kyle only see this as a small challenge. But when they realize Victor and Audra's dark plot, things become more serious than ever. They both know that Audra's every move has the backing of tycoon Newman, who is trying to find a way to tear their relationship apart and exploit this tension for his own purposes. But can Claire and Kyle turn things around? Victor is not one to give up easily. When he heard Audra's boasting about her plans to tear Claire and Kyle apart, he kept urging her to act immediately. For all his control freakery, Victor showed little interest in the details of how Audra planned to execute her plan. For him, it was enough that Audra succeeded. And the sooner the better. But in meetings with his associates, the first signs of failure began to appear. Audra, despite her confidence, had yet to do anything significant. In fact, her plan was still mostly empty talk. Audra's predictions about driving a wedge between Claire and Kyle were all in the air, with no concrete action. And perhaps that was not surprising. Audra, despite her confidence and seeming to know what she was doing, had yet to prove her true abilities. Her words were only vague speculations, not based on reality. She had nothing concrete except vague promises to destroy Kyle and Claire's relationship. Claire and Kyle were not people who could be easily taken advantage of. They were familiar with the power plays in the business world, and they knew how Victor operated. They both knew that Audra's every move had the backing of the Newman tycoon, which made them especially wary. What was going on was not just a power play in the business world, but also a battle of emotions and trust. Kyle, who had always had a keen business sense, was constantly suspicious of Audra's moves. This sense of wariness began to take root in his mind. He hated Audra not only for her actions, but also for what she represented. Audra, with her powerful appearance and overconfidence, is the embodiment of a force that is not easy to deal with. And Kyle, with his love for Claire and their relationship, will not let Audra or anyone else break this bond. Claire, despite her strong and cold appearance, is actually going through deep mental struggles. She knows that this battle is not just about maintaining her emotional relationship with Kyle, but also about protecting their careers and the trust they have built over the years. She knows that Victor does not simply want to take their positions in the company, but he also wants to make them submit to his terms. With the understanding of the forces they are facing, Claire and Kyle decide not to sit idly by and wait for Audra's attacks. They devise a plan to counterattack and not let Victor take advantage of any openings. They knew that if they wanted to maintain stability in their relationship and their company, they had to fight to protect what was theirs. Kyle and Claire were not the type to stand still in the face of adversity. They planned a spectacular counterattack to turn the tide of the battle that Victor and Audra had created. With the information they had about Audra, they began to organize strategic moves to defeat her from within their own circle. First, Kyle used his connections in the business world to expose Audra's weaknesses. He knew that no matter how strong Audra was, she could not help but have weaknesses in her work. The secrets about the lack of transparency in Vibrante's management were one of the major weaknesses that Kyle could exploit. Kyle did not hesitate to approach Audra's partners and find out important information that could destroy her reputation. Claire, with her intelligence and sharp vision, used her personal connections to convince some people in Audra's company to join her plan. She knew that these people would not want to be involved in Victor and Audra's dark schemes, and they could become important allies in this war. Although Claire and Kyle's plan is not simple, they believe that this is their only chance to turn the tables and ruin everything that Victor has prepared. They know that if they do not act now, they will be drawn into a war that they cannot control. Although Victor and Audra seem to have the upper hand at the moment, Claire and Kyle never give up. The two have proven that they are not only a strong couple in love but also formidable opponents in this tricky business world. Will they be able to turn the tables and ruin Victor's plans? This is still a big question, but one thing is for sure, the war between them and Victor has just begun, and no one can predict the final outcome. Life in the world of the powerful is never easy. Especially when you are drawn into a power game full of intrigue, conspiracy, and ruthless battles. That is the situation that Claire Newman and Kyle Abbott are facing. The two have always been strategic partners in both work and love, but now they are facing extremely harsh challenges from a dangerous force, Victor Newman and Audra Charles. Victor, a man who always manipulates everything around him, together with Audra, whom he trusts completely, have begun to carry out a plan to break the unity between Kyle and Claire. However, no one knows that behind these calculations, another story is being written, a story of counterattacks, of tricks and deception. Victor has always been known as a man who never gives up on his goals. He knows that if he wants to control Jabot and consolidate his power in the industry, it is essential to separate Kyle and Claire. And Audra, with her convincing confidence, has been assigned this task. But instead of doing it discreetly, Audra seemed to be somewhat complacent, boasting about her ability to destroy Kyle and Claire's relationship. Victor didn't care much about the method, as long as Audra could do it quickly and effectively. In his eyes, as long as the result was achieved, nothing else mattered. However, he didn't realize that Audra's moves were gradually being revealed to people he couldn't underestimate, Claire and Kyle. Claire, despite her cold and unyielding appearance, was not someone who could be easily manipulated. She knew very well that her relationship with Kyle was being threatened not only by outside conspiracies but also by those closest to her. When she discovered that Victor and Audra were behind these conspiracies, a strong sense of resistance was ignited within her. Kyle, being cautious and perceptive by nature, also realized that Audra's every move had a clear purpose, and it wasn't a good one. While he didn't buy into Victor's power plays, seeing his relationship violated had left him feeling vulnerable and determined not to let that happen. Claire and Kyle both knew that if they didn't act now, they would become pawns in a larger game that they couldn't control. But instead of confronting it head-on, they decided to set a trap. With their wits and cunning, Claire and Kyle devised a creative counterattack. They decided to pretend that they were falling into the trap that Victor and Audra had carefully prepared. While Audra was confident that her plan was going well, Claire and Kyle had begun to move in the shadows, preparing for a little surprise. It was important for Claire and Kyle to make Victor and Audra believe that their plan was working. Each move was carefully executed, making the other side think that they were divided, that Claire and Kyle were no longer on each other's side. Audra, in her complacency, began to let her guard down, believing that she had won. But that was just the beginning of a bigger game. Claire and Kyle had prepared a spectacular trick to turn the tables. They not only wanted to save their relationship, but also to make Audra and Victor pay. After pulling off the little farce, Claire and Kyle went one step further. With their ingenuity and calculated strategy, they not only saved their relationship, but also made Victor regret what he had done. In the process, they not only regained control of the game, but also created big shocks for Victor and Audra. One of the most notable moves in Claire and Kyle's plan is that Kyle will likely acquire Vibrante, the company Audra runs, and merge it with Jabot. This is not only a strategic move to consolidate Kyle's power in the industry, but also a powerful blow to Audra's complacency. This not only proves Kyle's power, but also shows that, sometimes, seemingly weak people can change the game. Not only Victor, Audra will also pay the price for her actions. Her complacency and overconfidence have led to a huge mistake. And when Nate Hastings discovers Audra's role in the plot to separate Claire and Kyle, she will realize that she has made a serious mistake. Faced with her own betrayal, Audra will find herself cornered with no way back. Not only will Audra lose face in front of Kyle and Claire, but she will also face serious consequences in her work and personal relationships. Her schemes will inevitably be exposed, and as a result, she will have to pay the price for her miscalculations. As things come to a close, Claire will have to face a difficult decision. Victor, despite being her grandfather, has crossed the lines he promised her he would never cross. And as his schemes are exposed, Claire will realize that in this war, she is no longer on the side of her family, but has chosen to stand on the side of justice and love. Claire's plot against Victor will not only be a battle of power, but also a battle of faith and loyalty. She will teach her grandfather a lesson that will last a lifetime, proving that not all battles can be won by manipulation and intrigue. Claire and Kyle not only saved their love and career, but also took back control from Victor and Audra. Their plan, though somewhat cunning and scheming, proved that in this world, those who fight and fight will ultimately win. Claire and Kyle's relationship is now stronger than ever, and they have proven that the power of love, intelligence, and solidarity can confront any force. In a world of intrigue and power play in the business world, Claire Newman and Kyle Abbott are facing the biggest challenge of their lives. Their relationship is threatened not only by their personal relationships but also by the deep calculations of Victor Newman and Audra Charles, who are trying to destroy their love and career. But can Victor and Audra achieve their goals, or will Claire and Kyle turn the tide in this battle? Victor, with his strategic vision and unmatched manipulative skills, has always sought to control everything around him. To consolidate his power in the industry, he has chosen Audra Charles, a seasoned and confident woman, to carry out his plan to separate Claire and Kyle. Victor knows that if he breaks the bond between the two, he will easily control Jabot and the other projects Kyle is managing. But as everyone knows, Victor is not someone who can win easily, and what he does not realize is that those who oppose him are not easy to manipulate. Audra, with unwavering confidence, has embarked on her plot, not worrying much about the consequences. She believes that as long as she breaks the unity of Claire and Kyle, everything will soon fall into Victor's hands. However, Audra lacks one important factor: she does not know that she is being closely watched by those she thought had been defeated long ago. Claire and Kyle are not people who can be defeated easily. They have loved each other and accompanied each other through many ups and downs in life. But now, their relationship is threatened by the evil plots and unpredictable calculations of Victor and Audra. However, instead of surrendering, Claire and Kyle decide not to sit still. They realize that they can turn the tables, turning Victor and Audra's game into a joke. Early signs indicate that Victor and Audra have been complacent, believing that their plan will succeed without anticipating Claire and Kyle's resistance. When Claire and Kyle realize that Audra is really just a tool in Victor's hands, they begin to prepare a clever plan of retaliation. They know that in order to defeat Victor and Audra, they need to make them believe that their plan is succeeding, when in fact, it is just a trap that they have set. Kyle, with his sharp instincts in business, realizes that there is a way to not only protect his love, but also take advantage of this opportunity to defeat Victor and Audra. He knows that if they can make Audra and Victor believe that the plan is going well, they will be able to turn the tables and make them fall into their own trap. And so the plan begins to take shape. Claire and Kyle decide to play a little prank before they go ahead with their big plan. They pretend that their relationship is on the rocks, that they are no longer on the same side, all because of a pointless argument. Audra, with her smug and impatient nature, believes that she has achieved her goal. She begins to inform Victor that their plan is on track, that they have successfully created a rift between Kyle and Claire. But while Audra and Victor think they are winning, Claire and Kyle are preparing for a powerful counterattack. Not only will they save their relationship, but they will also make Victor and Audra pay a heavy price. With his ingenuity, Kyle begins to implement another plan. To take over Vibrante, the company that Audra is running, and merge it with Jabot. This is not only a strategy to defeat Audra, but also a way for Kyle to consolidate his power in the industry. The acquisition of Vibrante will not only take Victor and Audra by surprise, but will also cause them to face a major setback in their plans. Meanwhile, Claire continues to push forward with her strategy. She knows that Victor has crossed lines he once promised he would never cross, and that exposing his scheme is inevitable. Claire is determined not only to protect her career and relationship, but also to teach Victor a lesson about greed and manipulation. Audra, while complacent with her initial victory, will not be able to escape the consequences when her plan is discovered. Nate Hastings, who has been keeping an eye on the company's movements, will be the one to discover Audra's role in the plot to separate Claire and Kyle. When everything is revealed, Audra will find herself exposed, not only in the eyes of Kyle and Claire, but in the eyes of the entire business world. In the face of her own betrayal, Audra will face serious consequences. She would find herself humiliated, and worse, any chance of career advancement would be jeopardized. But worst of all, she would be unable to escape punishment from the people she had tried to keep close. Claire and Victor's relationship will never be the same. Claire, after discovering that Victor has crossed the lines he promised he would not cross, will no longer be able to stand by him. She plans to fight her grandfather, not only for her love and career, but also for the betrayal he has committed. When Claire and Kyle succeed in foiling Victor and Audra's plot, they will teach him a lesson about the power of love, unity, and loyalty. Not only is their relationship stronger than ever, but they also prove that in this world, those with strong wills and who never give up are the ultimate winners. Claire and Kyle have managed to not only save their relationship, but also take back control from Victor and Audra. Their plan, while somewhat cunning and devious, proves that manipulation and power do not always win. Claire and Kyle have proven that the power of love and loyalty can defeat any conspiracy, and that sometimes, victory comes not from gentleness but from intelligence, determination, and resilience. Subscribe to Y&R to stay up to date with the latest news on our channel.